Hi everyone. I was speaking to Claire yesterday and she gave me a task. Now, most of you know that I went on this Create and Speak course last weekend, and she gave me the task to come up with 3 things that I'd learnt from that course. So I thought I'd push myself out of my comfort zone and I'd actually use what I'd learnt last week and do a short presentation for you. So what am I going to cover? I'm going to cover that fear is normal and it feeds our beliefs, a little bit about the feararchy, how to break the fear cycle, and how to understand different personality types and why it's important. So Carl Albrecht, he said all the fears that we have in life can be summed up into 5 different categories. So you've got the fear of extinction. So that's the fear of, if I cross the road, I'm going to die, or if I'm on the top of a building and I peer over, that anxiety that I get that I might injure myself or kill myself. So then we have the fear of mutilation. So that's the fear that you might lose a body part or an organ or something. Then there's the fear of the loss of automation. So the fear of being paralyzed and unable to have your own freedom. And then the final 2, which I suffer from a lot, the fear of separation. So this is mainly the fear of rejection, and the fear of ego death, which is the fear of humiliation. So with both of those, in my head, I'm constantly thinking, well, what if I don't come across right? What if you don't like me? Those sort of irrational fears. So the other thing we learned was about the belief cycle and how we can break it. So I'm going to give you 2 I'm going to give you an example of how it's affected me. So as you all know, I've done an app for the RNLI, and with that app, and this was the first app that I'd done. So when my contact said to me, when I was given the contact's details and I had the first chat with them, and they said to me, Rachel, can you build an app which we can edit? And all these doubts kept creeping into my head. Well, I haven't actually done an app to an app store recently. And am I going to be able to do it? What if the client's terrible? And all these irrational fears. So for me, it got to the thought stage, and the actions were that I was nearly tempted to say no. But something in me said, well, I need to say yes and then worry about, well, if I can't do the app stores, I'll look it up. Or if there's something else, I'll work it out somehow. And at some point, I'm going to have to break it at cycle 3, mainly, purely because if I say no to this client, I'm going to get another one who says, Rachel, can you do this app for me? And it could be a fitness app, it could be any type of app. And I'm going to turn it down purely because I haven't done one before. So for me, breaking that cycle, I had to do it at some point, so why not take the risk now? So for me, that was powerful. And last week when we were asked this question, I'm sure most of you have had imposter syndrome. That was the one that came into my head. So the fact that I've done this RNLI app, I'm kind of thinking, well, is this really me? And because I've done that, am I really able to do more? And so all these thoughts came into my head. Well, we did the French app, and the French app we never actually got out because my dad procrastinated. And so now it's his loss because I'm now moving on to other things. But I was thinking, well, what? Well, what if I'm a failure? What if the client's bad? And what if all these things? But actually, the way I broke the cycle, and this was a powerful thing that I realized last week, I broke it at stage 2 because then I kept telling myself, well, actually, you've done a degree, you've been coding for 20 years, albeit most of those were HTML, which is much simpler. So you've been coding for years, you know how to do it. And the internet's much better than it used to be. So if you don't know something, you can go and look it up. So why do I have this irrational fear? So by turning it on its head, I actually slowly began to realize that actually I'm in a powerful situation now. The way I think about it is being self-employed is a bit like being employed. You know, when you were unemployed, I don't know if any of you have ever done this, if any of you have ever been unemployed for a long period of time, but that niggling doubt before you get your first job, it's a vicious circle because you need that confidence. You need that confidence to get your first job, but you also need that employer to take that risk on you without the reputation. But once you've got that, your confidence just goes up and up and up. And that's what I think's happened to me. I could have quite easily, I procrastinated doing the apps because it's something that was in my business plan, but it took me a network which said that I couldn't join, said I was a web designer, to actually do the apps in the first place, and the RNLI app to actually get the ball rolling. So it's quite powerful when you think about it. But if I didn't take that leap of faith and actually do the RNLI app, then my business wouldn't have grown and I wouldn't be where I am today. My business would still be in the cycle of, well, I can't do an app because I've never done one before. And I would have been in this cycle of I would have never done apps, simple as. So the third powerful thing, and this is the thing that was really powerful for me that weekend, is knowing your personality type. So I imagine some of you have probably come across something similar. If you know DISC, this is sort of based on the DISC model. So you can think of it as 1 is D, 2 is I, so D dominant, 2 is the influencer, 3 is conscientious, which is what my personality type is, and 4 is steady. So basically, I'll give you 2 real world examples where I had meetings that influenced this recently. So I'm part of the B2B group, networking group, and I went on a national training course, and there I met somebody from the B2B Newcastle under Lyme group. And so after that training session, we decided we'd have a one-to-one. So we set a date and a time, and before the meeting, the client said to me, "I'm sorry, Rachel, I've got to push the meeting forward because I've got a paid client." Now, already she was giving me bad vibes. Why does she tell me she's got paid clients? And is she actually saying to me that paid client was more important than me? That's what I've inferred at the time. So I gave up part of another networking group just so that I could come onto the call earlier. And I waited for her and she didn't turn up. Something about her email system playing up. So then we did have the meeting at the normal time. So she shot down my app completely and said, "No, it's not of interest to me." And then she tried to sell me what she did. And she's a coach. So she helps people with speaking. So I kind of went along with it because my personality type doesn't like conflict. And I didn't feel I could speak up at the time. So I kind of went along with it and we booked in another appointment for the next week. But then overnight things changed. So I woke up the next morning and I thought something didn't feel right. So I didn't like her direct personality. It kind of felt like as soon as she said to me, "Oh, I'm not interested in your app and I don't think anybody else would," that I know that it was all about her. And that didn't resonate with me at all. But the big thing was looking at her social media. So she'd been going for 12 years, yet she had no videos, no testimonials, no social proof. And so I had a really bad feeling. So I decided to cancel the meeting. Now that took me out of my comfort zone because even maybe 6 months ago, I would have gone along with it. And I wouldn't have had that confidence to say, "Hang on, look, you're not giving me what I want." So I'm the C person, I'm number 3 on this detail. So I'm very detail orientated, I'm very logical, and I'm very prepared. So for me, if she couldn't be bothered to give me all the information, then how can I make a decision? So that's a problem for me. So if she'd maybe rephrased the meeting a tiny bit, then she might have got me on board. But because she was her own direct personality and she didn't appeal to my personality type, then we didn't get anywhere. And then the second one I had somebody recently come to me. So she'd had epilepsy and she had epilepsy caused through a brain tumor and she wanted to write this app. Now for me, that was kind of music to my ears. I thought, well, this is something I actually have experience of, having had epilepsy myself. So we had set up the meeting, and the pretext of it was she'd come from she'd been using a company, Expert Apps, and they'd let her down. So she kept saying to me things like, "Oh, well, the app isn't finished, but it's out," and those sort of things, which is really client speak for I expected to get X and I've got Y. So I had the meeting with her, told her how much it was going to be, and she turned around and said, well, I can't afford it. So then I realized, and then she kept saying lots of things. She kept praising this company, saying, well, they've helped me with my images, they've done this, they've done that. And I thought, you're not in the right mindset. Either that company, either you're telling me that company's rubbish when actually they're not too bad, or you're not, or if you really wanted to, you could find that money. You could go and fundraise, you could take out a loan, you could do whatever. But if you're not willing to compromise, then I was quite proud for myself because I stuck up for myself. The old me, maybe 6 months ago, would have said, oh, well, she can't afford it, I'll drop my prices right down. But I didn't. I stuck to my guns and thought, well, actually, if she can't afford it, it's much better I walk away. And actually, at this point in time, going for clients is actually a bit like it's just a numbers game. You're going to get one or two that you really can't work with. And it's so much better for your mental health just to walk away and then to go ahead with it. That's something I've learnt. But it was driving home on the M54 where it really hit me. So I'm number C, or number 3 in this diagram that I've done. So I don't normally take risks. I'm quite detail orientated and I'm very prepared. So for me to have my brain surgery 7 years ago was a revelation to me that actually that pushed me out my comfort zone, and that made it even more special to me. So now I'm kind of realizing that when I do take those risks, when I do push myself out that comfort zone, that actually it's not my natural personality type. So I should really not be too harsh on myself and really celebrate the fact that I know when I've done that. So that's something I want you guys to take away from this presentation. So if you can identify which personality type you are, then you can see all the personality traits that if you don't naturally have, going out of them means you're stepping out of the comfort zone. And also it should help you with meetings and stuff, because if you were ever in those 2 meetings I talked about earlier, then you'll know how to react, and you'll know that if the personalities clash, sometimes it's better to walk away from a deal. So what have I covered? So remember, so only you have the power to break your limiting beliefs. You might say to me, I'm fat, but if you don't believe you're not fat, then you're never going to break that limiting belief. So understand. So the other thing you need to do is understand your own personality type and use it to have more effective meetings or to come across better. And the one thing that I remember, if I want to procrastinate, stop me procrastinate, is to do it now. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope it's kind of given you something for you guys to think about, and also something for you to think about to help you grow. So look forward to seeing you all soon, and thank you for listening. Bye for now.